problem with Cricut Design Space is that it's constantly changing. So you get used to using it, and then the Cricut team makes some sort of update, they go and change something, and then you're just like back to being really confused. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of like the really basic things you need to know about Design Space. And it's the kind of things that I found, you know, whilst I've been a Cricut user, that they don't really change. You get to grips with these things, and then hopefully you'll be a bit less the next time something changes in Design Space. Let's take a look at Design Space. Usually when you open it up, you're going to end up on the home page. In all honesty, I spend like no time here whatsoever, so you don't really need to know much about what's going on here. And most of it kind of makes sense anyway. The only thing I would point out is, first off, if you look in the top right hand corner, you can select your machine. So I was last using my Cricut Joy, that's why it says Joy. But if I select the drop down arrow next to it, then there'll be, you know, all the other options available. And this should actually show you all of the machines, whether or not you own them. So yeah, you can select the correct machine that you're using up here. And I do suggest that you select the machine you're on, because for example, if I've got mine set to Joy, but I'm now planning on maybe using my Maker, I won't be able to see all the projects that I could potentially make, because what Design Space will do is filter, you know, my interface for only things that are compatible with Joy. So anything that uses like the foiling tool or a scoring wheel or is like in dimensions bigger than what the Joy can do, I'm not going to see that. So make sure you do set your machine selection. And then the only other thing to know really is, how do you start a project, or how do you get onto the canvas, which is the place that you design projects. So you can do that either by clicking on this hamburger menu top left and selecting canvas. And then if we just pop back to the home page, you can get there by clicking on the hamburger and then home. The other way that you can start a new project is by clicking the new project button in the top right. Okay, so we are now on the canvas. So this is where your lovely designs come to life. Now at the moment you'll see there are a few different areas I'm going to introduce you to. The first is the top menu here. And you can see actually pretty much everything here right now is grayed out. That's because there's nothing on the canvas right now. In order to add something on the canvas, like a picture or some text, you have to use the left-hand menu that goes down the side. And this is where you have all the different options for how you add things to your canvas. And I think as a beginner, the only ones you really want to worry about are projects, shapes, images, and text. The third area that I will cover is this area on the right hand side, which is your layers panel. I know that if you are someone who's sort of new to design software, this already looks like it's too much to handle. And that's how I felt when I first started, but as I'll show you step by step, it really is simple once you start getting to play around with it. So the first thing I want to show you on this left hand side menu is how you add a shape to your canvas. This, I think, is an easy place to start. Once you click on shapes, it will open up the menu, and there are a bunch of shapes that are free, and you'll see this with basically everything we look at. Some things are free, some things you need to pay for. Everything under this included with subscription. You need to be a Cricut Access member, so that's like the monthly membership. It costs $7.49 in the UK. What it means is that you can use any of the images, the shapes, the projects that are included within Cricut Access. But that's only true for as long as you're a member. So let's say I decided to use this particular shape for a project. Because I'm currently a Cricut Access member, I'll be fine. I can use this project, I can cut it out, I can save the project, no problems. But if I decide next month, actually, I don't want to pay anymore, so I cancel my subscription, this will now be an image I'm no longer allowed to use. And the only way that I can make that project is either I become a member again and start paying monthly, or I choose to purchase this image outright on like a pay-as-you-go style model. Most images cost between like £1 and like maybe £3 or £4. So what would happen is that before I can make the project, there'll be a little checkout button where you would normally see make it, and I'd have to pay for the images that are Cricut Access only, and then I can complete the project. If you do buy an image, then it will always be yours. There's never then a point at which you can't reuse that image. Let's just go back to shapes, and I'm going to choose this heart. You may have noticed now this top menu has come to life. So that's because there is now something on the canvas that we can start manipulating, and these are all the different tools that allow you to do that. So let's go through one by one. The first thing is the operation, and that is you telling your Cricut machine what it is you want it to do with the shape. So currently it thinks you want to cut. So for example, you're going to put some cardstock on your mat or some smart vinyl in, and it will cut out the heart shape. You could change that depending on the machine you're on to a draw. So now it thinks you want it to draw with a pen, this shape. And if I change my machine selection to something like Cricut Maker, then you'll see, you might instead want to use the scoring tool. And now you can see it's got a dash line because it's a score. Any other tools that are compatible with your machine, this is how you change the setting to tell the Cricut machine what it is you want it to do when you get to the make it point. Okay, so let's change it back to a cut. If you want to change the color, that's the next tab along, the little swatch there. When you click on it, you'll get a selection of like commonly used colors, I guess. But if you're like really specific and you know what you want, you can find the full rainbow by clicking on advanced. So you can just cycle through and find a color that you're really obsessed with, and you know that you're going to make your project in that color, like this. The next one is the select all button. I mean, I've never used this, you can just ignore it. The next icon is edit, and this is just where you do all of your actions like copy, paste, and duplicate. Duplicate is just a quicker way of doing a paste. It just recreates the same thing on your canvas like that. Next, offset. Okay, offset I think is something which needs a longer video to explain exactly how you're going to use it. So I'm going to leave that for now, and also I don't think it's a beginner level thing. What we've got next is a few tools that help you with like arranging your images on your canvas. So let me just make a copy of this heart shape, and then that will show you how it works. So the first one, if I select both of them, you can select objects by clicking and dragging over both, or clicking on one and then holding shift and selecting the next one. If I now click on the align icon, you can see there are a whole bunch of different options for how I might want to align the images. So with the left sides aligned, or this is centered vertically, so now they're on top of each other. Let's undo that. And instead, let's say we want to align bottom, then it will do that. So this is actually quite useful when you are creating a design and you want things to be nicely centered. The other cool thing that it does, but you need to have 3 objects for this, is if I spread these apart a bit. Okay, you can see 2 are really close, one's a bit further away. If I select all 3 and then go and align and then distribute horizontally, you can see it's fixed the gaps between the different objects. So the align menu is very useful in that way. The next one, arrange, you do actually need you need at least 2 objects on your canvas for this. So let's change one of the colors. So now you can see I put the kind of peach heart on top of the purple. If I want it the other way around, what I can do is click on arrange, and then I can press either bring to front or bring forward. Bring forward moves it forward by 1 step. So if there was a 3rd heart, for example, let's do that. Change the color of this one. So let's start with that peach one. Maybe we need to overlap like this. Yeah, if I want to bring it forward 1 step, so it's in front of the purple behind the lilac, I will do bring forward. So you can see now it's still behind the lilac. If I want it all the way at the front, I would say bring to front. And the same with center back. Now it's right at the very back. The next one is flip. Again, it's quite obvious. Horizontal is not going to work because this is a symmetrical image, but if we do the vertical, you can see it has done the mirror image along the vertical axis. Okay, now in terms of sort of like basic manipulation of the shape, you might want to change the size. You can do that by hovering over one of the corner squares around this bounding box. That's what this box is called around any shape. And if you just click and drag, you'll make the shape bigger and smaller. If you're being really specific, maybe you're putting this design on like a bottle and it needs to fit exactly, on the dimensions of the bottle. You can type in precisely what you need at the top. The other thing to know is that when you do resize from this bottom corner, it's going to resize it keeping the aspect ratio locked. So what that means is that you're not going to distort the shape. It's going to get smaller and resize, but still have the same ratio of length to width. But if you want to make it look a bit different, like it needs to be more tall than it is wide, if you click on this lock icon, you can see that's locked, now it's unlocked. When I click and drag now, I can make it any shape that I want. Whereas before I could only go in an exact, 45 degree. So now I can make it any funny shape that we want. That's how you do that if it's something you need to do. Rotate you can also do by, if you kind of hover just beyond the bounding box, you'll get this kind of curvy arrow. You can use that to rotate. You can also be very precise up here if you need a very specific angle that you're rotating at. And then position just tells you where your item is placed on the canvas. Again, it's not really one that I ever use, because if you want to like get things to be exactly in the same position, you can just use the align button. You don't really need to mess around with the position. Okay, so that is everything you need to know about the top menu. As a reminder, it only comes to life when you have something on the canvas that you've selected. You'll see now it's all grayed out. When I select the heart, everything has come to life again. Another way to get something onto your canvas if you want to move beyond basic shapes is to use images. So if I select images, and let's just click on browse all, and you'll see that there are 330,000 almost images that you can work with. And actually this number's growing quite fast now because Cricut has opened up their library to contributing artists, which is really cool because now we're getting all sorts of like lovely designs in here that maybe the Cricut team themselves wouldn't have thought to put up. So you can just search in here. Let's search for birthday, for example. And you'll get loads of different possible images, phrases, designs that you can use in a project. As I mentioned earlier, some of these will be free. Some of them you'll have to pay for using the Cricut Access subscription or just buying outright. For example, this one here, you have to pay 89p to be able to use this. If you want to only find the free ones, just click on the free filter and then you'll find everything that you can use and you won't have to pay for this. You don't need to be a member. There are a bunch of other filters on the left-hand side when you're searching in images. The only ones I ever really use is I sometimes filter by draw only. If, for example, I know I'm going to use a pen or the foiling tool, then I want to look for designs that only use like single strokes like this. And yeah, I don't really tend to use any of the other filters, so I think you don't need to worry about them as a beginner. So let's go back to the canvas. We can do that by clicking on images and it closes the image menu, or I could have clicked on canvas to get back here. The last bit I want to show you is how you add text if you want to incorporate, like let's say Happy Valentine's under this heart. Click on text and it will automatically appear on your canvas, and then you can just start typing and it will start filling your text box. Also, you may have now noticed there's a brand new menu that's appeared, which is everything that is relevant for how you manipulate your text. So if I click away, then I can resize my text, and I can do that by exactly the same method as I showed you for the shape, where you just use these arrows, and I can rotate in the same way as well. But if I have a very specific size or font, font size I know I want it to be, I can change that in this menu up here. So let's say I know I need it to be exactly 50, you can type it up there. Sometimes you might want to separate your letters out a bit, so that's what the letter spacing is for. And let's say, for example, if I click back in the text box, make this 2 lines, I can increase the space between by using this line spacing tool. And of course, if you want to change your font, simply click under fonts and then you can see all the different fonts. One piece of advice is maybe scroll all the way down somewhere to a letter you hardly ever get to and start looking from there, because I think a lot of us just start scrolling from the A's and we never really discover the cool fonts that are, down somewhere lower down the alphabet. I do actually have a couple of much more in-depth videos about how you use text in Cricut Design Space and also how you incorporate it into your designs from like a graphic design perspective. So I'll link those for you because I think those are really worth a watch if you do want to get to grips with that. The last thing I want you guys to be comfortable with in Design Space as a beginner is the layers panel. So you can see this layers panel on the right hand side. Now don't get confused by the term. What a layer is in a design space is literally just anything that's on your canvas. Any object is actually known as a layer in design software. So if I click on the heart, you'll see that that becomes the grade layer because that's the one that's selected. If we click on the text, then instead the text becomes the grade layer. Now, the reason this can be helpful is maybe when you've got lots of things going on the canvas, you can find the different objects in your layers panel. And sometimes, for example, you want to get rid of a certain part of your project, but maybe you don't want to delete it. What you can do instead is hide it by clicking on this eye icon. And you can see now it's got a slash, meaning it's still there on your canvas. When you save the project, it will still be there, but it'll be hidden. So when you go through to make it, it will not try and cut the heart because it's hidden on the canvas. But if you click on the eye again, it will come back. There are a whole host of other functions that you can use in Design Space. Most of them I've put together like a specific individual video for because I think it's worth you getting to know them a bit better. If I select both of these layers like this, then you can see at the bottom of that layers panel, there's a bunch of options that have now become available to us: slice, weld, attach, and flatten. These ones I think are kind of like a level 2 sort of design space level of understanding. So check out my video specific to those, because I think you kind of want to be comfortable just being able to use design space at the level that I've explained so far before you move on to things like this. But just so you know, these options are available down here. You can also find them by right-clicking in the layers panel, and a lot of the same things will appear. Another couple of basic things you can see is if you want to zoom in or zoom out, there's this option down here for doing that. One thing I do find sometimes is that I get a bit lost on the canvas, like I might accidentally scroll off somewhere and then I've got no idea where my project is. So if that ever happens to you, you can see the numbers at the top and the side of the canvas. So you can just try and start scrolling in the opposite direction to get yourself back to like the very corner, top corner, where usually that's where all your work is going to be. And another quick hack is, if you don't like seeing the grid lines, if you click on this little area between the two zeros, you can toggle between a blank canvas, large square canvas, and small squares. And then the last thing to know is that you can save your project, so simply click on save, and then you can give it a title. The cool thing also is that you can organize your projects into collections. So if I was designing lots of cards, then I could create a birthday card collection, flowers collection, foiled designs, infusible ink, anything like that. If you're someone who likes to have, even your digital life very well organized, this is perfect for you. Okay, so there are a few things on the canvas that I have deliberately not talked about. For example, phrases, upload, monogram, templates. These are all things that I do think are level 2. So watch out for like my next video so that you can get up to speed on some of the more complicated things. And I will link for you the videos that I've already made that cover some of these topics like slice and weld, attach, which unlock a whole new level of design capabilities for you. Seem complicated to start with. I struggled with it, but once someone has explained it to you nicely the first time, then it all makes complete sense. Yeah, I hope that you're feeling much more confident to be working in design space, and I know how annoying it gets when it just like crashes on us. And I don't know about you, but every time I open it, I get a brand new update, so I'm always a bit apprehensive, like what's going to be different this time? But yeah, I think if you know these basics, then in general, even if some things move around a little bit, you can still figure out how to use the software. Alright guys, I will see you in the next video, and until then, happy crafting!